Welcome back to the News from the Real World podcast. I'm Quinn.
I'm Jess.
I'm Eleanor.
I'm Jody.
Andrew.
And I'm starting this segment off with an article on, it's an editor pick. Do U.S. arts suffer from a lack of working class voices? This is from InsideTheArts.com. Butts in the Seats by Joe Patty. And what did you guys think? So this article kind of talks about how, well, it asks more questions than anything. It doesn't really give any answers. It says, I wonder if we really get enough involvement across the social spectrum in
I think the
arts
author
in this country.
He seemed to be trying to start a conversation, and it was kind of. I scrolled down right away to see like, oh, who's commented on this, and nobody. I mean, we commented on our own blog, but on his, nobody had said anything, which is too bad because it is a really important question for us to be asking. I did a little research and could only find any studies that were done on art participation, on like. You know, and there's a lot of work done on that, like who goes to museums and who goes to plays.
Right.
But in terms of a study of who is producing that sort of thing, there's much less known. There's a lot of work recently into the whole creative class syndrome, or whatever you want to call it, and there's a lot of information about where art is being made in terms of urban centers versus suburban areas, stuff like that. But I couldn't find really anything on the demographic of artists as a whole in the United States.
I feel like there's a large correlation between that, though, because you only really want to become an actor if you're exposed to that and you're in the arts. Like, you don't get, I don't even know, like, people in areas that don't have theater that aren't exposed to that, you don't just wake up one day and go, oh, I want to be an actor. Your mindset is just so much more practical than that.
Except we're exposed to acting every second of every day now because of television. So
But also you don't
not
have the
everyone-
pathways in. If
Yeah,
there's
and
no
not everyone
opportunities
can
in the
afford
area.
cable anymore, so not everyone is actually watching these televisions in the poorer districts. So getting that working class that doesn't have the exposure in.
I feel like, we're only taking acting as an example, but if we look at art in general, anyone who listens to music and hears a voice on the radio, and then they want to be on the radio, I think, I don't know,
I think that, and this gets mentioned a little, the question and the problems really start with the cutting of arts funding in public schools in this country. I think other things, sports have have gotten more funding over this past half century.
Started.
But then there's also a little bit offsetting that is the birth of the art public school, the art-based charters, not charter schools, but public schools that when I was in high school that didn't exist. Even how long ago was that now?
Right.
However long ago that was.
Same here.
That wasn't an option for my generation, and I feel like I've met tons of people that are going to school here that are here largely because of that sort of renaissance.
I do know this school, and I think most major conservatories, they try and get a spectrum of society within their classes. It makes sense.
I mean, it sort of, for me, starts with the writing too. Like, where's the writing coming from?
Where's the content coming from?
In our modern theater, if we're not talking about the things that everybody is going to be interested in, if we're not talking about the universal subjects that touch us all, then how can we expect to have the audiences that we want? How can we expect that?
True. Well, Christina Benvenu writes, what gives art excitement and new life are the multiple voices and minds that create and present their ideas and passions to us. Well put, Christina. Excellent. Moving on.
All right. This is indie.
From Lady Director talking about the Lady Director. Let's hear it.
All right. Okay. So indie
Don't call me a
director.
lady director. Did you know?
Indie
like
director
getting a rise out of
Ava
you.
DuVernay on Dressing for Success, and this is by Inku Kang for IndieWire blog, and it's an editor pick. And basically, this article is talking about a sort of like a keynote speech that this indie film director Ava DuVernay gave, and when she's kind of talking really honestly about her experiences being like a female director in film, which we know is like an incredibly male-oriented field. And the article and the comments tended to focus on how she talked about like what she wears on set, and she was talking about how she wears like glasses because it kind of, I don't know, it just makes her feel comfortable and gives her this kind of like barrier between people. She wears like a beanie to stop people like
touching her hair. She don't like
and
touching her hair.
being too feminine and other things like comfy shoes and stuff. But really, she's kind of, I mean, what I took from it is like what you wear and how you present yourself as like a woman in a male-oriented industry is actually like very important, and you need to do what you need to do to make yourself feel confident in that world.
Do you feel like you do that as a director, consciously?
I mean, I don't feel like it's as far as she does, but I mean, I definitely am like aware of it, and I just dress in a way that I'm gonna like feel confident and happy, and so that I can like give my best. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, this thing is totally applicable to all fields. You know, I think we all, to a degree, dress to be taken seriously in our work. Yeah.
And it really depends on your industry what that means.
We spent, I feel like we devoted at least 25 or 30 minutes to discussing this with Tanisha. I think in our first weeks here, we had a class with just me, Tyler, her, and Christina, and she was talking to us about how what you wear just represents who you are, and if you want people to take you seriously, you can't wear sweatpants all the time. You know.
Look at me. No one takes me seriously today. I'm in my running attire.
And there was a comment from Cassandra Glenn who said, however, I do not agree that all women need to pay special attention to how they dress in order to be treated equally. I don't wake up in the morning and pick out clothes in hopes that I can be seen as measuring up to others. Which I think is like a legitimate point, but like I definitely felt like a lot of the comments on the blog were kind of, whenever anything like this comes out where you're acknowledging that there is an inequality and that you might want to address it, people feel like then they're under attack because, they didn't feel like there isn't, or they don't want to acknowledge that there's an inequality because then they're like, women are being seen as weak. But it's like, there's one woman has won an Academy Award as a director. Only 3 women have ever been nominated. Like, there is it's just really hard. So let's talk about it instead of pretending that we're all like strong and empowered, which we are. But then there's like, we need to talk about it, that there are difficulties.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Passionate.
But we appreciate that passion here at the podcast. Moving on, this is from HowlRound.com. It's an editor pick. It's by Maren Langsner. Why everyone should study stage combat. Anybody ever taken a stage combat class?
Not intentional.
It's fun. It's great.
Yeah.
It's really a whole storytelling thing. And Maren kind of goes through the basic things that stage combat promotes. Safety, knowing that whatever physical violence or action on stage is safe. Narrative clarity, and he uses terms. He uses objective and action, which is, not just doesn't just apply to scene work or dialogue parts. It also applies to physical violence on stage. Understanding of illusion, collaborative synergy, and broadening of dramaturgical and textual analysis. What do you guys think?
I tend to really like the Howl Around articles.
Me
Yeah.
too.
I don't know.
Me too.
Has anyone else
They're
noticed
fun.
that?
Yes. There you go.
Yeah, they're good.
I think it was really interesting that he said if a fight choreographer does his job well, you won't notice where the director
Yeah.
Right.
moves into the fight director and back.
So that doesn't feel like, all right, we're stopping the scene now to have a fight. No, the
Yeah.
fight's really a part of the scene.
Yeah, and that fight like empowers all
Right.
of that, and continues the story through like just a different type of action.
I also thought it was interesting how he was talking about if there's like a chainsaw fight or something with 2 guys with chainsaws, like because that's so dangerous, it will be very safe because everyone will go out of their way to make it very safe. But if there's like a slap or something in a production, often that can be like overlooked and the safety issues around that.
Well, I
I've
feel
heard
like
more
it's like-
actors say, no, I can take it, just hit me.
Yeah.
Slap me for
I feel
real.
like that goes back to the article we were talking about last week with a guy who had his throat slit on stage.
Yeah.
Because, like knives, we handle knives every day, so
Yeah.
it's not anything new. So when you get something so dangerous, like a gun on stage, if someone has never fired a gun before, they're
Right.
going to be a lot more careful with it.
Actors actually say just slap me.
I've heard many
I've heard
actors
yeah.
say, yeah, just slap me.
That's
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, no, that's not how it works in the theater.
But it also
yeah.
won't look good either.
Yeah,
'cause
and
it'll
also
look
like
sloppy.
if you're doing that every night,
Yeah.
for weeks on end. That can't be good for you.
Yeah.
Jamila Kobum writes, for stage managers, although each choreographer may be different, fight choreographers take fight notation differently to how we would. So that would be a great class to add to our curriculum. Advocating for a fight class
I
for
would
you guys.
love to take stage combat.
I would do
love
it.
to
love
take
it.
it.
It keeps us so knowledgeable about the content. I'm talking to you right now because
Yeah,
you're
you're
a stage
the
manager.
manager.
But
Yeah.
when they say, things like the naps and the hits and the beats, and it's just, you need to know what those terms mean,
Yeah.
especially when you become the stage manager running the show and the
Yeah.
fight director isn't there. And yeah, you're going to have a fight captain, but it's a lot more useful if you can, because you generally have the view while it's on stage running the show and you notice where things are changing.
Right.
You need to be able to have that conversation.
And 4 eyes are better than 2, 6 eyes are better
Yeah.
than 4. I mean, yeah, there was at one point stage combat for stage managers taught here.
I wish it was.
Catherine Moore, can we have it again, please?
You know what's amazing about fight choreography is how long it takes to put together.
Oh, yeah.
I did a production of Hamlet, and so of course we had to do the duel at the end, and that, for what was essentially a minute of stage time, they spent weeks and weeks working on that.
But
And practicing
as the
it,
article
getting
pointed
it
out,
smooth.
it's telling so much story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I did a
much story.
production of Marat Sade. It was the first show I ever stage managed, which was a nightmare. But there was a 3.5-minute fight scene at the end of the show, and literally day one of rehearsal, the first thing we did was we introduced the fight director and we started working on the fight because we needed to touch it every day.
And get it in your body
Yeah.
soon, you know.
Princess Bride's gonna have a lot of fight.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're gonna have that cheesy Casio music.
Yes.
The whole
Yeah, the
soundtrack
synth-
is this
the
cheesy
synthesizer.
Casio music.
Synthesizer,
Yeah.
yes.
Sorry to go back. but-
Yeah.
It's good reincorporation.
Yeah,
Well,
tie
there
it
you
all
have
together.
it. That brings us to the end of this week's News from the Real World podcast. I'm Quinn.
Jess?
Eleanor.
Jody.
Andrew.
Join us next week.
Oh.